Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this this experience of your Kundalini Awakening Conversations with Christman. We're going to discuss your Kundalini experiences, and one of the experiences I would like to discuss today is really how we are conducted through the changes. So, for instance, we have a person. We'll just pick an imaginary person. We have a person who wants the Kundalini really, really bad. They know about it. They've heard about it. They've read about it. They've collected information about it. They're really, really interested in exploring it and making the changes that come with it. And as the Kundalini begins to be accessed by them through that desire, and let's just say they're practicing the safeties and so they're actually, on their way to giving themselves this kind of grace. Well, the Kundalini will push them and help them and develop this urge that pushes them towards, more of a practice of the safeties. Say, for instance, if they were doing just one set of safeties per day, well, maybe they're pushed to doing it in the morning and the evening, and maybe they're pushed into recognizing the value of devotion, and they're adding in a devotion to their process, and so they begin to really, 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 very finely at first, they begin to become pulled into this wavelength, this frequency of refinement towards Kundalini in the body in a greater way. So refinement from, to the activated state and then into the awakened state. And this has a very, very, very particular set of compellings, and the nature of the drive towards refinement is going to be accentuated by the drive towards eliminating the mundane current lifestyle, the current life ideologies, the current life programming, the current life expectations. There's going to be a sharpening and a refining of the person's activities towards Kundalini at the expense of that which they have once given themselves into. So, for instance, if you're working the 9 to 5, let's say you've been working 9 to 5 for 20 years. For 20 years, you've been getting up at 5, getting dressed, getting the kids ready, getting the whole family thing, and off to work you go. You get there by 8 o'clock. You get your union break at 10. You get your lunch break at 12. You get your union break at 3. And then you're off at 5, and then you're on the subway, or you're in the car, or you're walking, taking a bus, whatever. That is the day in the life of the unawakened person. And this is, I know this is generalizing a bit, but a lot of people are inside of that equation. And as the Kundalini moves into them, they'll still be able to hold their job, typically, unless the Kundalini takes that option away. And it does. For some people, it takes that option away. It may not like the person in the job that they're currently in, and so it may eliminate that job for them and then, subsequently help them find another job that is more along the lines of what it is they're doing to promote Kundalini activity within their system. So this is a real thing. This is a very, very, very real scenario. And as the ideologies are replaced and the programming is replaced, so are the activities that support those programmings and are replaced by new activities. Activities in line with the safeties. This person perhaps is starting to go through his or her life and and looking at levels of forgiveness. Oh, how can I forgive that man who broke up with me? Or how can I forgive the people that have not been treating me well? How do I forgive my family members? Starting to look at that, starting to expand levels of tolerance. Maybe they're not operating from a very, very sensitive trigger point anymore when it comes to emotional outbursts or qualities that would really begin to negate the refinement process that they now find themselves in. And so even as the person is relocated with their job, they're still active within the refinement process of the Kundalini. It's very important for people to realize that as they come into this, it comes in to them. Now, it's already inside them at the base of the tailbone, last three vertebrae. But that's in the dormant state. When I say come inside, I mean it begins to awaken or activate itself, and that as that activation takes place, it begins to spread its moral compass into the consciousness of the human being. It begins to spread its ideologies and programmings towards grace into the individual mindset and consciousness. And so very, very important to surrender that which once was. Surrender that which once was. I mean, here we are. We're at December 30th, 2015. December 30th. Here we are, the last day of the year, or second to the last day of the year, and we're talking about releasing yourself from the old and embracing the new. Now, you're only releasing yourself from the old programs of that which doesn't serve the Kundalini within you. It doesn't mean that you're releasing all of your experience and all of your practices and all the things that have served you well in your direction towards the Kundalini. Those things will still be intact as long as they serve the Kundalini agenda that is beginning to open up within you, within the person. And so, even though we are saying at this time of the year, out with the new, out with the old, in with the new. Well, we're also saying out with the old that doesn't serve us, and in with the new that does serve us within a Kundalini continuum, within the activation status of that which we are trying to fulfill within ourselves. And so, you may find yourself in a strange country. You may find yourself in a strange land. You may find yourself surrounded by strange people that you wouldn't normally socialize with. You may find yourself working with the homeless. You may find yourself, working in ways that serve the Kundalini, serve the environment, serve the natural environment in ways that you would have never done before. Let's pretend you're a corporate lawyer, and all you basically know are business meetings and tables and the fine things that a corporate lawyer with money can have, and all of a sudden the Kundalini begins to change your perspective of what success is, and as she begins to change you, say, from being a corporate lawyer to being an environmental lawyer or a lawyer that defends those people who cannot afford a lawyer. I forget what they call them. It's on television. It's like a public defense lawyer. So this would be an indication of Kundalini making changes in the person. Now, in this case, the person isn't losing their job, so to speak. They're gaining a different job within the same type of an environment. I mean, it is said that lawyers are the high priests and priestesses of this country because they understand the legal wording that this country was founded on. And to some degree, I think they're true. I think to call them a high priest or priestess injects a level of hubris into the equation that's unnecessary. But, I'm sure that it was a lawyer who said that. But so if this person is not being totally taken away from their livelihood, but they're being taken away and redirected within their livelihood, some people will get absolutely rejected out of their livelihood. If you're a mechanic and she doesn't want you to be a mechanic, well, you are no longer that mechanic. Doesn't mean you lose the knowledge. It will typically mean that you lose the patience with it. You lose the interest in it. You lose that reflection of want of gain that you had as you became the mechanic, and now, you don't have that interest anymore. And before I go even further, I'm going to ask Mary Jean or Vincent if they could let me know if the sound is coming through okay. Sometimes we have a bit of an issue with Blog Talk Radio here, and I'll be doing the show, and all of a sudden I find out I've been talking to a computer screen, so nobody's hearing me. So Mary Jean said sound is perfect. Thank you, Mary Jean. Thank you very much. Yeah. So you lose the job of being that mechanic, and maybe she pushes you towards something that is far more along the lines of helping the society or the world that you live in around you. Say you move from being a mechanic to a social worker. You move from being a mechanic to a wildlife biologist or something of that nature. You get moved by the Kundalini, and if you respond positively to that movement, you are allowed to embrace a whole new aspect of yourself. Some of you, however, will not even be able to have another job. She will just take you right out of that job and not replace it. For some of you, that means that you'll become homeless, and then that you'll have to see what that's like, and what kind of world is that? That's what happened to me. I got to know what it was to be homeless. I got to know what it was to not be interested in any kind of employment, even though I was qualified for all kinds of employment. I had to know what it was to not have before I could really appreciate what it was to have, and to have within a Kundalini context. Not to get so blown away by having money so that you can buy things, cars and clothes and toys and travel and all these things, but to have money in a way that allows you to survive and have the Kundalini come to you. So say for instance you've suffered some sort of a trauma, but you've been given money for that trauma, whether it's just working at a difficult job or having an auto accident that wasn't your fault, and of course that goes to court, and perhaps a person receives money from that type of a thing that allows them to have the Kundalini and 24/7 without having to have a job, without having to look for a job, without having an impact their current living scenario. It allows them to live in that place that it's arranged for them to have. And so in many, many, many ways, the Kundalini will take control of the individual, even in the activated pre-spinal sweep state. It will take control of that individual, and it will provide them with money. It will provide them with a total lack of interest in their current job. They will not even maybe be able to get another job, until the Kundalini decides that it's time. And in that time, in that free time that person has, the Kundalini is giving to that person. They're having Kundalini dreams. Maybe they're having some Kriya. Maybe they're really, really, really starting to focus in on the refinement protocols that allow them to make a self-discovery about who they are, how they are, what they are, as they come closer and closer and closer into the divine infusion that the Kundalini brings. So this is a very, very, very real deal. This happens to people all the time. As I've said many, many times before in the past, Kundalini is very, very different wanting Kundalini as opposed to very, very different having the Kundalini. When you want the Kundalini and you're in that driven state, that activated state, she takes over in a very specific way, and you are caught up in that wave of allowing the Kundalini to begin to fix your current circumstances, or to fix your future circumstances, and you're surrendering to that. In some ways, maybe you don't even have a choice in surrendering it. She can take your choice away very, very quickly. And that life that you thought you had, that career that you thought you were going to do for the rest of your life, that 8 to 9 or 8 to 5 employment that you figured you were going to have for the rest of your life is all of a sudden changed. It's gone. It's nowhere to be found. And you're left kind of spinning in a circle wondering, well, what the heck happened to my world? And here you are, all of a sudden you're having bliss. All of a sudden you're having crit. All of a sudden you're seeing lights inside your head, or you're seeing a blue point of light off in the distance ahead of you, or you're seeing the eye of Horus, or the non-corporeal floating eye that floats in front of your physical eyes, about 3 to 4 feet, maybe 6 feet away sometimes. So all of a sudden you're having this phenomena because a scenario has been created for you to have this change, and she's initiating the change. So all the prayers that the person did to support their activation, all of the meditation, all of the devotion, all of the different practices that a person has done, the forgivenesses, the tolerance, the patience, the trust, all of those things that the person has done to bring their inner environment into balance and harmony with the Kundalini activation is starting to work. It's starting to take control. And you, the individual in the activated process, need to surrender completely. You need to surrender completely, folks. There is no room. There is no room for your resistance in this context. Now, I'm desperately searching for my plug here so I can plug this thing in down to the last few minutes. There we go. Okay. So, yeah, you have to surrender to this completely. And I mean completely. You surrender every aspect of who you are. You'll still have food on the table. You'll still have gas in the car. If she has done this to you and you're a single person, well, that's going to be much easier for you than if she's done this to you and you say you have kids or you have a spouse, you have a family that you have to support. She is pro-family, she is pro-life, and so she will not leave the person that has the family, that has that kind of a life in the lurch. She will definitely force trust upon them in a greater way, because when you have a family, well, you're not living exactly for yourself. You're living for the whole family unit, and you're working for the whole family unit. And, of course, the Kundalini is the Sacred Mother, and she sees the virtue of family. But even within the family environment, she is in total control, and she will gently but inexorably, if she wants to distance yourself from that family, she will distance you from that family. If your marriage is not conducive to having the Kundalini, and if you were thrown in the psych ward by your spouse or had an intervention or something like that, and that is threatened again, if you have any other kind of a Kundalini phenomena in their presence, they'll just call 911 and have you inducted into the medical prison system. Well, she may end that marriage. She may end that relationship. But she'll end it in a way that will take care of the children, that will take care of the spouse in a fair and equitable way. But if you're a single person, well, you may get moved. You may get moved to another country. You may get moved to another city, another state, another province. However it goes, where you're living right now, you may be moved completely away from your comfort zone, from the familiar environment that you found yourself in when you first began to really look into the spiritual aspects of Kundalini. Kundalini won't necessarily tell you its name. It won't. Sometimes it will. Sometimes it will say yes. You'll look in a mirror inside of the dream state, and you'll see Kundalini stenciled across your forehead. This has happened. This has happened to people. Okay, but not always is she so self-descriptive. Sometimes she makes you do the research to find out, to match up the symptoms, to really get help from, say, another mortal source that allows you to slowly but surely come into the understanding that, oh my gosh, this is Kundalini. And then she may give you to somebody, or she may introduce you to certain levels of teachings that seal the deal for you. It seals the deal because you've read those words, and those words touched such an amazing level of truth, inner truth, and levels of love and acceptance within you, that the first thing you'll be able to do really is cry. You'll just have to cry, because the Kundalini will amplify that. She will tell you that it's correct. Yes, this is what I want you to read. Yes, this is what I want you to practice. Yes, this is how I want you to change your life. So as she's saying that, she's amplifying it with extreme levels of love, putting the person into levels of bliss. Well, they begin to understand as much as they can from that one experience what it is they must do. And what it is they must do is surrender completely to the Kundalini. Completely. Now, we have Sugar Babe in the background, our cockatoo. She may be letting us know and saying hello to everybody. So if you hear a bird squawking, that is her. We also have Tika the wolf lying here, and Lasha the cat lying on the couch. So everybody's here. Yeah. I just want to... They might provide a little bit of background noise every now and again, so I wanted everybody to be aware. So this is the activated stage. You're driven. You're driven to do things. I was driven to do my spiritual practice 5 times a day. And here, let me give you an example. My example is really an example that I think really exemplifies what I'm talking about today. Is that I was working a job that wasn't really Kundalini proactive, and yet it was. I could, at the time that I was having these jobs, I was in an understanding that I had to do a spiritual practice every day. With this job, I wasn't able to do that all the time because the hours were so crazy. Sometimes my job would start at 3 a.m. in the morning. Sometimes it would start at 9 p.m. and go to 3 a.m. Sometimes I'd have to, get up at 5 a.m. and go to, 12 or 1 in the afternoon. I mean, very, very, very different timelines, and all kind of scrambled up. You could never really plan your life at all. And so she terminated that job for me. She terminated it. And she actually killed the company. The company went away. So everybody kind of had to get something different, and then she launched me towards a job that a friend of mine asked me to do for their father, and this job was very, very, very proactive in a Kundalini way. Helping to take care of senior citizens in many different scenarios, medical and non-medical, can be a very, very challenging process. But this is the process she put me into, and she put me into hemodialysis, and she put me into, different forms of caregiving, not just the elderly, but other, different levels of people. I was also a property manager, and I made it a point to choose within a Kundalini context, and opening up the house and the real estate to struggling college students, so people who couldn't maybe afford the typical rent that was going around, but could afford a room rent or something of that nature. And so I was guided to do that, and I did that for 7 years, and I did the caregiving for a long time as well. And the caregiving allowed me to do a practice 5 times a day. Once before I got to work, 3 times during work, and once before I went to bed. And what practice would that be? Well, that would be the safeties practice. That would be the safeties that the Kundalini put together for everyone who is coming into Kundalini. It goes across the board with regards to Kundalini stability within the activated sense, but also within the awakened sense as well. So I was driven to do this, and I did it every day without fail. There is no day off from a spiritual practice. There is no, she won't know if I missed that one, or there are no excuses. You cannot hide from that which is within. And that which is within says you do this practice 5 times a day. And so I did. And I had very, very, very strong results. And I don't recommend people do that practice 5 times a day. I recommend they do it twice a day. And then let their Kundalini decide if they need to go for more or back off. Okay. And that'll often be given through levels of physiologic. So, for instance, if you're getting too much energy from that practice, well, you might get a headache. You might get a headache on one side of the fontanelle or the other. It may feel like hot knives being pressed into your skull. Not to such a debilitating effect, and of course, everybody's level of debilitation is different, but from a level of letting you understand that, okay, enough energy is here, let's process what we have, and then you can increase it later on. And you just need to understand that that can sometimes be the case. Or you'll feel a level of entity incursion start to come upon a person, because of people who are inside of the activated process, well, they're a really bright red flag to the astral creatures that come about and want to kind of live off the light of grace that comes from an activated individual. And so you may feel a level of entity contact or swarm of entities come upon you, and that can also give you a pretty harsh headache. And that headache can last for days and days and days, and they will try to use pain sometimes to coerce you into doing one thing or another. But because you're listening to this is another activity of entities that you can look at and you can go, oh, okay, I'm not going to allow that to occur. And you can create with your mind, you can create a hoover hose coming out of the earth, and you can hoover the top of your head, sucking those entities right down into the earth, and I suggest you all do this. And I know you're thinking, well, that's just make-believe, Chrism. That's just your imagination. Well, astral and imagination are very, very, very tightly intertwined. The astral and the spiritual areas are very heavily intertwined with what science and the psychological science-based industry would call imagination or fantasy land or things of this nature. And it's even though this invites ridicule in our current society, and it invites ridicule from MDs and people that we have a level of respect for, and we respect their opinion, it is nonetheless absolutely as real as the floor under your feet, as real as the sky above your head. It is real. It's just not measurable by science yet. So therefore, if you can't measure it or replicate it, it doesn't exist. According to the scientific method, it doesn't exist. And so therefore, these people can't prove it, and they can't work a scientific equation to make it real. Therefore, it becomes unreal to them. And it's just it's a limitation. It's a self-inflicted limitation that is given from science to itself, so that they can just, have a very, very sharply focused eye on what they can replicate, what they can measure, and what they can discern through that replication and measurement. With Kundalini, you can't do that. With the astral, you can't do that yet. With imagination, you can't do that yet. And so they don't see that as verifiable, true realities that actually exist within the human system. And I'm here to tell you it is. It is true. It is what it is. That is what happens. So those entities come upon you, and they start sucking off your light. And that can give you pain. That can give you a headache. That can give some people a migraine. So you create, you manifest through your conscious creation a hoover hose coming from the earth, and you hold that in one of your hands, and you start sucking the entities off the top of your head straight on down to the center of the earth. You let that hoover hose go, and it sucked itself right on down. I'm trying to make it as easy as possible. I was using this technique last night on 2 different people, and it works great, my friends. It works great. Hoovers, yes. In the United States, we call Hoovers vacuum cleaners. And so for those of us in the United States, it's a vacuum cleaner hose that goes from deep, deep, deep underground into your hot little hand. And in that hot little hand, you are sending those entities into an area where their energies and their intention can be mitigated by the Shakti Kundalini herself, rather than you or your ego or some sort of a be gone in the name of Christ, or be gone in the name of Buddha, or be gone in the name of Allah, or be gone in the name of whoever, and which typically doesn't work, but, maybe it does for some, okay? Maybe it does for some. So that's one thing within the activation stage that I really want you to focus on. Another thing I want you to focus on is your surrender. You have got to surrender your personality. You have got to surrender your personality. Who you think you are, how you think you are, what you think you are. You must allow the Kundalini to begin to change the inner dialogue and the inner understandings of who you are, because you are no longer the mundane sleeping person in the activated state. You are no longer that person. You are a person that is coming into a divine light, a divine existence. And the activated status is basically the vehicle that is taking you and helping you take yourself to the top of that mountain. And it's hard to climb that mountain sometimes. And in that difficulty, lies the surrendering of the personality, the who you are, how you are. You'll get to a point where you won't know who you are. You won't feel who you are. You won't know how you're supposed to feel. You won't feel like you belong anywhere on this world. You won't feel like you even belong to your family. You won't feel like you'll have no friends. You'll have a very, very, very shrunken world, so that it is just those forces of the Kundalini and those individuals of Kundalini that are allowed to come into your life for a certain amount of time. This is also natural. This is also something that must happen, must be done. And it's not going to be done for everybody in the same way. Please do not look for cookie-cutter Kundalini activations. It's not going to be the same, because we all come into this with very, very, very different karmic experience. We all come into this with very, very different levels of lives that were lived, and the consequences of those lives that have been lived and how they reflect upon your current karmic status within this lifetime. So everybody comes to the table with a different level of karma, with a different kind of karma. And so within those karmic overlays is where we are patterning our Kundalini response, i.e., so if a person's karma says, well, you have to be really, really nice to trees this time in this life because you were very mean to trees in another life, and so you would go out of your way to be nice to the tree, but the Kundalini would also come in and allow you to be extremely nice to the tree. Maybe becoming a legislator or a political person so that national parks and parklands could be set aside so that these trees can survive within the world of humanity, the industrial world of humanity. And so saving them from being killed or sawed or turned into a fence. Okay, so the Kundalini really, really begins to take hold of a person's destiny in a current level. I mean, like destiny. What kind of a job are you doing, or what is it within your karma that allows you to have the Kundalini, and yet you still need to balance that karma as well. So we'll balance the karma and have the Kundalini at the same time. In fact, the balancing of the karma will push the Kundalini agenda. It will push that Kundalini agenda. Oh my. Once again, I am left here without a clock on my streaming switchboard thing here. So I don't know how much time has passed. I find this really strange. I wonder if it's just the computer that I'm on. Because this is the only computer that has had this occur. I see that, first of all, I need to make an introduction to everybody. And so I would like to introduce to everybody the Queen of Questionable Kundalini Comforts, the I in the Irish, Her Holiness, the Rose of the Emerald Isle, Santara Kundalini. Hello, Santara.
Hello, Chris. Hi, everybody. Good to be here. You've got 1 hour and 25 minutes left. I think it's your computer, Chrism, the one you're using.
No, I think so. I think.
Yeah.
Geez, I had such a hard time. I had to scramble and get another computer going because I didn't think this one was going to make it, and I have a feeling you're exactly right. This is this computer, and so everybody, my apologies for that. Amelia, do you have any announcements you'd like to make, my dear?
Yes, I'd like to make an announcement. Thanks, Chrism. So the announcement is the one that I like to make about donations. I'm going to give you 2 places. Today I'm just going to give you 1 place that you can go to make a donation to the Kundalini Awakening Systems work that is being done. There are a lot of places that Chrism does this work. He has many, many Facebook groups. He has this radio show. He works privately with people. He answers emails. He is working for the Kundalini and for people who have Kundalini 24/7. And so donations that are given really assist him to continue to do this work. And anybody who would like to donate, it is really gratefully received. So I'm going to give you this one address. It's chrism-kundalini.blogspot.com. So that's www.chrism-kundalini.blogspot.com. And there's a donate button there. And always I will say to people, when people hear, a request for donations, it's not really a request. It's information to let you know that donations are very much accepted. It is a request insofar as that information is being given. There's no pressure on anybody to donate. But if you do, again, as I say, please feel free. www.chrism-kundalini.blogspot.com. That's it, Chrism. We don't have any seminars to be announcing, I think, at the moment, do we?
No, the very next thing that's going to happen is we're going to take 20 people into Peru, into the Peruvian jungle, and we're going to participate in ayahuasca ceremonies, spiritual ceremonies, and allow those people with Kundalini, is this you, Santara?
That's with me. Yeah, moving my phone, Chrism.
I'm going to go blue.
Turning it off.
Okay. We're going to go to Peru, and we're going to explore what the Kundalini has to communicate within an ayahuasca environment. And this is not going down to South America to get high, to get stoned, to get drunk, to party, or to do any of those types of things. This is very serious work. This has the ability to profoundly change a person's life. And so, in a way, this is a seminar that is not given on this planet, so to speak. This is a seminar that is given into the inner environment, the inner spaces of an individual, where their Kundalini is beginning to talk with them in real ways, in ways that through the gift of dimethyltryptamine and through the gift of the different plant helpers there, that allow a person to really begin to learn about who they are, how they are, why they are, what they are, within a Kundalini context and outside of the Kundalini context. And so this is what we'll be doing February 13th, and this is what everybody's kind of getting ready for right now. And I strongly invite people who are coming to begin to really practice their dietary standards, and those standards, if they haven't already been posted, will be posted soon. So that's the next big adventure, and we might, if this goes well, we might be doing another one into northern Peru come September of next year, which is day after tomorrow next year, and so something for people to consider. Okay, and so to continue along the activation sequence. Now you might start getting dreams that have spiders in them or bugs, but you won't get these spider dreams every day. The Kundalini isn't always so provocative with people. Sometimes she is. Sometimes she is. I work with a gentleman that will have Kundalini phenomena every single day. I work with another gentleman that will have Kundalini phenomena every single day. I mean, she's literally electrifying the man and changing his energetic anatomy in extreme ways. Another person will see visual things and have dreams of a Kundalini nature every single day, and it goes across the board. I mean, another person I'm working with has the same scenario happening, and it's up to the individual to begin to really open themselves away from that analyzing motor within them to analyze the phenomena into into something that is easily digestible rather than having to struggle with it a little bit. And I'm going to suggest that you struggle with it a little bit. You don't want to try to customize Kundalini phenomena in order to satisfy ego self-interests or ego self-understandings or ego self-ideologies. You want to take it exactly as it is and begin to learn from what it is it's trying to communicate to you with. And so as you have these dreams or this phenomena, do not have an expectation for more. Don't try to control the Kundalini in giving you more. And don't forget what that phenomena was teaching you. So keep a phenomena diary, this date, this time, this phenomena, and then you go and you illustrate the phenomena, even, draw a picture of it, describe it. What happened? How did it happen? Did you dream of a spider? What was the spider doing? And what was it doing in your room? And what were the options that you had with it? Were you trying to kill it? Were you running away from it? Were you accepting it? Were you holding it? Was it holding you? What kind of a teaching is the Kundalini giving you through that type of an experience? And so keep that diary going strong. It's very, very, very important for a person to really begin to understand and to not try to make it easier. This isn't about ease. Matter of fact, Kundalini is very rarely trying to make it easier for you. It's hard. It's hard to change your life in ways that you don't understand completely. Seriously, it's hard. You can imagine how hard that is. It's hard to change your life in ways that you don't understand completely. And this is where a very, very, very important quality of Kundalini comes into play. And that quality is coming from the individual. And that quality is trust. You must have trust in your Kundalini process. You must have trust in the activation that your Kundalini is giving you of itself, of herself upon you. You must trust this part of the Kundalini, and you really, really need to invest that trust into everything that you do. Everything that you do must have a reflection of the trust that you're giving into the Kundalini. And that means that you don't take time away to just not think about Kundalini. You don't take that. It's kind of always there. It's always hovering, maybe just out of sight, maybe around the corner, maybe in the back of your mind. It's always there, though. And it's always there, and it's waiting for you to begin to connect the dots with regards to how it wants you to begin to express yourself inside of the Kundalini, inside of the gift of itself within you. So it's very, very important to increase your trust. Have that trust daily, nightly, all the time. And this trust doesn't mean that you go out and play in the freeway or the motorway or the highway, however that way is described in the different countries and continents. It doesn't mean you go out and do something extremely dangerous because you have so much trust in the Kundalini that you know she's not going to allow anything to harm you. It doesn't mean that you're careless or you're kind of trying to prove to yourself that the Kundalini is will let you do anything that you want, and therefore she won't allow harm to come with you, because I got news for you. She will allow harm to come to you. If it is seen that you are taking advantage or you're trying to play the scientific prove it game with the Kundalini, she'll definitely let you hurt yourself. She'll let that rattlesnake bite you. She'll let you get hit by that car. Maybe not killed, but definitely traumatized in some way or other. You know, you want to be very, very careful about what you do with regards to trying to control the Kundalini, or trying to let your ego, at the steering wheel of this rocket ship that we're calling the Kundalini within you. So be very, very careful with that. If you have any questions about this so far, feel free to call in. The call-in number, the guest call-in number is area code from New York. It's a New York City area code, 347-934-0026. 347-934-0026. Typically a free call for people in the United States, so feel free to give us a call and ask any questions you would like pertaining to your Kundalini awakening experiences. So moving on over to Santara here, and I'm going to... Santara, are you there? Are you still pinging away?
I'm here. Yes, and just can you hear me?
Yes, very clearly.
Yeah, good. Just in relation to phoning from other parts of the world, Skype is very, very economical. I'm here with you on Skype for 2 hours from Europe, and it costs €2 something or other. So if somebody rings from Europe or some other part of the world if they have, credit on their Skype, it would probably cost them very little to make a call and to speak to you on air.
Well, yes, I would invite any kind of a Skype call. Typically, the Skype call, I believe, will come in through your normal phone line, and so if you do your Skype call, just put in 347-934-0026. That should bring you straight on over here. So yeah, thank you, Amelia, for bringing that up. Now, did you feel that the Kundalini was driving your activation sequence pre-spinal sweep? Were you caught up in that drive?
Oh, I was, Prism. Without realizing it, I would have had things that were happening to me, around. I was driven to give up meat. I was driven to become interested in a lot of things that I really didn't. I gave up meat without any desire. Does that make sense? It was a compulsion. I was being driven to do it. After I had my, the sweep or the Kundalini awakening, I was driven by the Kundalini. I was driven to do so many things. I was driven to devotion. I was driven to have a teacher. I was really driven to have a teacher.
Were you driven to eat egg placentas every day?
Oh. I was driven to be obedient.
Ouch.
I did that. Yeah, but even that of itself is really interesting, because the Kundalini, drives you to do things that would not be what your ego, or I speak about myself, would not be what my ego would want at all. If my ego had its way, and these things were introduced as an option, gosh, no, I would, it would not be something that I would choose to do. So driven is a really good word, and it's a word as well that, because you're driven, it is something that I wanted to do, even though I recognized that it was something that my ego very often would not want to do, or a part of me did not want to do. And there were various drives that have happened to me since my Kundalini. It never stops. Well, that's my experience so far. And there are phases and there are cycles, but there are, each of them are driven by different aspects from the Kundalini. I was driven to leave Cork and to move to Kerry. And that really came from the Kundalini, because I wouldn't have wanted to do that. Give
us terms that we can see how big a move that is.
Well, it's not a big move. I mean, in terms of America, it's like a little skip. It's just a 2-hour journey, you know. But
That's
it
a
was
big move.
leaving the
2 hours away.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it was leaving a city and going to the country. It was moving children from school. It was completely letting go of a huge social circle and leaving friends behind. I mean, everything changed for me. And because I'm not there anymore, and because I can look back in that, I can see what the Kundalini was doing. I was driven to do it, but I had no clue. It's like what you were saying earlier, I didn't understand. I had no understanding of why. My linear, logical brain would go, why? My children are in a really good school. Everything is really, going well. We have a good dynamic going with work. I have a good dynamic going with friends. I was happy, There was no reason to leave, really. But I was driven to do it, and we did it. And it's amazing how I can see why the Kundalini did that, because once I got there, I was driven to do a massage course. I was driven out into nature in a way that I could not possibly have done in the city. I was driven to so many things, Chrism, and so many teachings. And because, of obeying, because of surrendering totally to what the Kundalini was pushing for me to do, my process expanded in ways that, I don't know, I just fall down in amazement at, the grace and the gifts that have come,
Sure.
It's been amazing. I mean, in so many ways, my world shrank, and then my other world expanded, if that makes sense.
Your outer world, your outer world
shrank,
and your inner world expands.
Totally, yeah.
Very
simultaneously at the same time, yeah.
That's an excellent analogy. Excellent analogy. And I'm going to go down. Thank you, Amelia. I'm going to go down the phone list here, and I'm going to talk to Eileen right now. And Eileen, hello.
Hi, Chrism.
Hey, how's Florida?
Oh, it's beautiful.
It's warm and beautiful, just like you. Can you tell me what drives you within your activated state to do what you do? What do you feel the Kundalini is driving you to do?
Oh, I think I'd have to agree with Santara. I don't often understand what is happening. I mean, initially I was moved all over the country, and I never did quite understand why. And I look back as Santara was talking, I'm looking back and I'm going, I still don't completely know why that happened.
But you did it.
And now, I'm sorry?
You did it. You surrendered to that.
Yeah, I did it. I did do that. I did.
And you support the program in many ways. You give a lot of posts on Facebook and on Yahoo. I mean, what's driving you to do that?
To be honest with you, I really don't know. Because I ask myself often, why am I doing this? Why am I spending so much time? And why have I supported seminars and that type of thing? And it's the word that was used is I'm driven to do it. And I find myself doing it and not thinking so much about it. I mean, I've talked to someone who does service for the CAS program and always refers to it as work. I don't see this, what I do, it's not work for me. It's service. It's devotion. It's surrender. It's trusting. I don't see it as work.
Good.
Part of me now. It's just part of who I am.
Well, I mean, she has made you an ambassador, and you're doing it well. I just want to compliment you, and everything you just said is right on target. Right on target, my dear. Thank you. And I'm going to come on over, and it looks like this is Brooke here. And so bringing Brooke into the red. Hello, Brooke. Hello. Oh, maybe Brooke is doing something right now. So we'll just go out there, come into the blue, and coming over to Rosemary, I believe. Hello, Rosemary.
Hi.
Hey, Rosemary.
I'm enjoying your question.
Are you out and about? What are you doing?
No, I'm in and about, but I'm here. I'm right here, sitting
Sounds
still.
like you've got a vacuum cleaner running. Do you have a vacuum cleaner running?
I'm sorry. It's Minnesota, a heater. I'll move it away.
Oh, I see. That's right.
Chilly.
You guys might be pretending to have snow this time of year, I believe.
Oh, yeah. But we had about 7 inches, 8 inches yesterday morning.
Yeah. Never lasts, though. Although I understand the Mississippi's going to flood, or is already flooding. Tell me, Rosemary, inside of your activation experiences, what have you been driven to do that perhaps you wouldn't have normally done?
Well, there's some number of things when you say that I wouldn't normally do. That we've talked before about my where I was directed to by you in my process to do particular things for the homeless, and I looked at and evaluated where I was putting financial donations, and I moved that totally to the project that's underway right now to construct a home for them, a 7-story home. So that's something that comes to mind. The other thing that was given to me from the inside out was asking you to return and do another seminar here in the cities. And once I asked you to do that, it was to me, and truly so, my responsibility to see that was accomplished. And Eileen certainly has provided a lot of help we have had 3 seminars. And the reason I asked you when I did was I really got, that was 2 years after I was in the seminar at least, I really got that God is in us to express God's self in God's creation. And I said, really, God, we're not doing a very good job. That's why I asked you to come back here. And for all the needs in that area, this is a little handful of people that have been impacted. But that, when I look at it, really is that constitutes my life for these. So that was 3 years ago I asked you, so it was then last year when it happened, and again this year. So that's what my life is, and there's not question about it.
And you're surrendering to that, right? You're surrendering to the force of the grace within you?
Yes.
Well, thank you, Rosemary. Thank you for doing that. I'm going to go ahead and put you back in the blue here and go back, see if Brooke is back at all. Hi, Brooke.
Hey, sorry, my phone was on mute, and I'm out here. I'm going up the last hill. I'm about to die. Oh my God.
How have you been able to follow the activation sequences that the Kundalini's given to you? How has that materialized, and what have you done in response?
I feel like I've had to give up everything, but I don't really know if that's accurate. That's just what my ego thinks, probably. Like, my job. I haven't been able to get a job at all, so I'm understanding that's just, she doesn't want me to do that at all. So that's been hard for me because I'm always one to get out there and go do it, so it's been hard. It's been difficult.
How many hours would you give on a day?
Huh?
Where are you walking?
What was that? Sorry. What was the last question?
How long would you typically work in a week in your old job? How many hours?
Okay, well, probably like 60 or 70.
60 or 70 hours a week? Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, so it was a lot, you know. It was all my
so
life,
now,
and I wasn't able to do anything that was nourishing for the Kundalini. Nothing. And it was basically come home and plop down on your bed and then get up and do it again in the morning.
So now, how are you adjusting to the activation process taking you away from that type of a scenario?
Well, I've had to really trust that this is the right thing and really surrender to, because I have been guided, you know, I can't deny that. In my, you know, quieter moments, I know the truth. So you just have, when it gets blurry, you've got to trust. When you go through those clouds, they're kind of obscure. But that's a challenge. It's been a challenge. I mean, the other thing I've been compelled to do is the devotion, and then a lot of writing. So I don't really know what, you know, is going to come, but that's what I've been driven to do.
How does the devotion
videos
help?
And things like that.
How does the devotion help your process?
How does the devotion help with the process?
Yeah.
I think it opens you up to the connection to the whole process. It opens you up to experiencing what's trying to be given. It opens you up to surrendering to it, for one thing.
Nice. Very nice. Very nice, my dear. Well, back to doing what you're doing, okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Oh. So there you have it, folks. This is from people who are inside of the activation sequence and who have already passed through the activation sequence. It will take a hold of your life. And as it takes a hold of your life, it will change your life. It's a huge difference between wanting and having the Kundalini. So know that and understand that and allow that to govern what it is you're chasing after. And now, some of you may not have any choice. For some of you, this may come of its own, on its own, to you. But for others who are consciously aware of the Kundalini, that it exists and that it's out there, perhaps you're a Kundalini yoga practitioner or some other kind of a spiritual teacher or life coach or some type of a social worker. A lot of social workers get the Kundalini. And so within that understanding, you really want to find the levels of trust that will take you into this, but without brutalizing you so harshly. It's the ego, and it's the resistance of the ego that causes a contrast to be given inside the Kundalini agenda. And that contrast can be sharp and thorny. And, it may not be something that you want to participate in because it brings pain into the equation. The ego never likes being taken out of the control seat. Okay. So there's two things that you can do. You can just put the ego in its place and constantly self-correct until you get the ego, totally within its place. You can also get the ego behind the Kundalini, supporting the Kundalini, sacrificing its control to the Kundalini, and therefore sacrificing its control over the conscious individual and allowing this process to take place. So I would strongly recommend it for those of you who are just kind of caught into it naturally. Let it happen any way you can. For those of you who are pursuing this, the same advice applies. And now, and so as we build the activation, it's getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and then boom, the spinal sweep occurs, and the union with divinity occurs, and the person knows levels of truth that doesn't even make sense to their 5 sense body, but they know levels of divine truth, and those divine truths know them, and the world changes for the individual. And then it's not so much learning how to live with the changes in the phenomena and the drive that the Kundalini will give a person. It's learning how to live with perpetual phenomena or lack of phenomena. So, for instance, you'll have some phenomena at a little bit of time, and then it stops, then it comes back, then it stops, then it comes back and forth. And these can be life-changing levels of phenomena. And so within the awakening aspect of the Kundalini, it's very important for you to incorporate that which drove you to the spinal sweep, that which drove you. So all of the things that you did, the practices, the changing in the inner environment, the changing in the understanding of what's going on, why it's going on, how it's going on, and the changing in the control of your personal environment to that of surrender. So that comes with you. And so does the trust come with you. Because as the phenomena increases or decreases or exposes itself in one way or another upon you, you must trust that you're not being possessed, you're not being sucked into some satanic cult, you're not being sucked into some religion, you're not being, sucked into some perversion of a spiritual teaching. You are being pulled by the divine into itself, and you need to trust that. And a lot of people are going, well, Chrism, I don't agree at all with this whole idea that there can be no gain without pain. And I'm not going to suggest that every level of evolution is going to have pain accompanying it. But I do know that until the ego really releases its hold over the understandings and the ideologies of the individual, then there is going to be a level of pain if when the Kundalini forces its redefinition, the ego's redefinition of itself within a Kundalini continuum. That force itself can cause extreme levels of pain because we're used to the familiar, we're used to the comfortable, we're used to the easy. We're always going to be moving towards that which is easier, towards that which is more comfortable. And this is not always going to be the case with the Kundalini. You need to understand that there are levels of pain that sometimes can be attendant with ego involvement, in a strong expression. And so that's something to be considered. I would like to open this up to questions. If you have a question about any aspect of your Kundalini awakening experiences, I want you to go ahead and call this number either on Skype, as Amelia mentioned earlier, or on your cell or your landline. The number is area code 347-934-0026. And I'm going to bring Her Holiness on again. And hello, Santara.
Hi, Chrism. I really like, what you're saying there about getting the ego to support the Kundalini rather than anything else, because educating the ego and getting it to support the Kundalini, my goodness, that's the way to go, I think. That's the way I'm going with this through your teaching. And, it's working. We're not there yet, but we're getting...
As long as it works, right?
Say again? Yeah. But it is because, you know why? What I'm finding or what I'm discovering is that because that is an ongoing process of getting the ego to support the Kundalini, that is a gradual the change happens. It's an ongoing process, and the change is unfolding into the ego as well through all the different things that I am doing to get the ego to support the Kundalini. It's a good way to do it, because we read so much, don't we, about killing the ego, suppressing the ego, and when we try and suppress stuff or avoid things in order, that doesn't really help because there's no education of the ego there. The ego doesn't really the ego can actually begin to understand insofar as, and it can be understood how to support what the Kundalini is doing, how not to fight and how not to go into resistance. And things like the emotional safeties.
You always have to be right. That's an ego thing too. All the different mutations of egoistic activities. Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
And that's a big one. I mean, that's a huge one, Chris. That was a huge one for me. The desire to be right. My goodness, like ego just loves that. And I mean, what's interesting is, for me anyway, in my process as I was going along, I would have moved into, let's say, newer phases. But even within that, I would get stuck, where the ego, created a new illusion or whatever you want to say. And, the safeties, again, would have helped me to, it wanted to be right in that new phase. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to say that. And another thing I really wanted to say is I love the Hoover thing that you mentioned earlier.
It just works. I was hoovering people's heads last night, and it works really well.
I imagine it would do because it's real,
And the interesting thing is,
it would be real.
The visuals of entities change over time too, and you'll get very, very specific entities that are very much attracted towards a very specific part of the brain, part of the mind. They'll be attracted to, say, the masculine side of an individual or the feminine side of an individual. And some of them are there to not just scare, but they're there to cause pain. And they're there to cause pain as a form of a control mechanism. So if you are giving yourself to the Kundalini and that's the last thing that it wants you to do, well, then it's going to give you a headache. Mm-hmm. Or if you're giving yourself to your teacher and that's the last thing that those entities want you to do because they know how this teacher treats entities, well, then they'll give you a pain. Amelia, I need you to tap dance while I let Tika out here.
All right, okay. Tap dancing. Well, yeah, I mean, I haven't, the Hoover is new to me because I have used other things such as, washing, being in the shower or moving my hands over my head. And I can see why the Hoover would work because, imagination in the context of the astral is a real thing. So, if in a scientific, the way science won't even believe that those entities exist in the first place, they'll just say, yeah. Well, we're treating like with like. And what I love about the Hoover is that it is, in some ways, it's an active thing you're doing with the Hoover, I imagine, but it's also passive in that you're just placing it there and it's sucking them out. And you don't, you're back? I'm just saying why I like the Hoover idea, Chris, and it's a new one to me.
Well, yeah, I just started using it last night, and at first I even visualized the Hoover engine there, and I thought because I always like to take entities into the soil. I like to give their energy into the environment, and I thought, well, why not just hook it directly and just suck them right on down there and let them go, and there you go. They just you can see them. These particular entities, this one for one person I saw as leopard spots, and entities don't necessarily have to have a human type of form or an animal type of form or anything like that. They can just be globs of energy, and in this case there was about a little over 100 leopard spots on an individual's sacred male side of their brain, and I said, oh, I see this, and let's get rid of those. And they were in agreement, and we went ahead, and I just hoovered them right out. And they all left, and the pain of the headache left immediately, and then they tried to come back, and back again, and so on and so forth. Yeah, it works pretty well, and it'll eventually get... I'm sorry?
Fantastic, yeah.
Yeah, it worked really well, and then you just let the Hoover hose go straight back into the earth. And so you can do this anywhere. And this this ties in with some of the other teachings that I'll have to cover in another time, because I want to have time for our questions. Have you been able to collect?
I sure do.
Oh, here we go.
Yes, I have a few questions that came in, Chris, and maybe 4 or 5 that came in to my own box. So I'm going to start with those. Okay, the first one is, the phraseology, sorry. When a person has no physical teacher, is Shaktipat given to a person by the divine if he or she has no physical teacher?
Yes. Yes, the divinity... well, first, let me back up a little bit. There's a huge paucity or a very strong lack of teachers who are available that can teach this knowledge from an authentic and truthful standpoint. Typically you'll get teachers that are associated with some sort of a religion, or they've got a really big financial interest and they're going to charge you an arm and a leg, or they may have had a mystical experience but not a Kundalini experience, except in their ignorance they're calling it a Kundalini experience when it isn't, and so they'll try to teach people from that perspective. There's very, 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 very few teachers that give straight up Kundalini teachings the way that is being done here. And so the Kundalini understands this. And it understands that, well, okay, you are here, you are wanting to receive a Shaktipat, therefore you are wanting to receive a Shaktipat through this teacher. And this teacher is giving you a set of protocols to follow that encourage the Shaktipat. Well, therefore, in a way, you do have a teacher, especially during that Shaktipat, if you're following those protocols, because those protocols came from the Kundalini that is awakened within that teacher. So a person is receiving teachings from a teacher for their Kundalini equation as they are receiving the Shaktipat. But even so, even if that person wasn't inside of the Shaktipat, the Kundalini can come to a person just by virtue of hearing a voice, like the voice that I'm speaking with right now. You guys should be able to feel the Kundalini current within it. Or if you read the words of some of the articles that the Kundalini has written through me, you can get that activation sequence through those words alone. That's why it really behooves a person who is very, very, very interested in the Kundalini that we're discussing here, this non-corruptive, truthful, divine heritage that we're talking about here. It's really important for them to reread those articles, listen to the old broadcasts of this program. We've been doing this since December 12th, 2012. Okay, that's when this show was given, and this is now December 30th, 2015. So it gives you an idea of how many shows you can go back and listen to, and really do that. Reread the articles, re-listen to the shows. Allow yourself to come in to the grace that is being given through that teacher, or through the words that teacher's Kundalini has placed within a person's grasp. It's very important for a person to get that aspect of it, more so than it is for a person to have shall we say, a Kundalini teacher that doesn't have Kundalini. More so than it is to belong to a group that is doing a specialized kind of yoga that they call Kundalini yoga, but doesn't really have anything to do with Kundalini. Okay. It's very, very important for a person to recognize that the Kundalini within themselves is the ultimate teacher, and it will tap and it will guide a person to the Kundalini representative that is speaking the truth in the way that person's Kundalini resonates with, and then that person will be guided to go with those teachings. So So yeah, you don't need a teacher, except that you always have a teacher, and that teacher's at the base of your spine. Over. I don't know if I covered it. Did I cover it?
I think so, Chrism. The next question is, why chakra breathing should be performed during Shaktipat, but not at other times?
Because that's a way of energizing each of the chakras, well, 5 of the chakras anyway, with levels of strong conscious empowerment. And that's not something that people need to do every single day. That is, people get obsessed with doing things, the A plus B equals C scenario. If I do this, then I can expect that to happen. And I'm not, the Kundalini isn't here, and I'm not here to teach you to have expectations. Okay, I'm here to teach you very, very specific ways to initiate activations and awakenings within a person that are safe, sane, and equitable within the society that they're living in. If you start prana bursting every chakra all of the time, well, you're gonna diddle around so much with your chakras that you're gonna lose sight of what the real important aspect is. It's not about phenomena. It's about who you're becoming inside of this new paradigm. What are you doing? How are you doing what you're doing? And why are you doing what you're doing? Is it for phenomena? Is that what you're doing this for? You're just doing this so you can go, oh, I had Kundalini phenomena last night. Or what are you doing? Are you doing this because it represents the way that your Kundalini is guiding you to do these things? Whether it's charitable, activities like Rosemary mentioned as far as the homeless goes, or is it somebody that just wants to get, kriyas going or to see entities or things of that nature? I mean, you really, really, really want to understand that Kundalini is not going to feed your ego desire to see phenomena occur upon your individual being because the ego just wants it to occur. Doesn't fit a mathematical paradigm. It doesn't fit a scientific paradigm. And so if you're chasing after the Kundalini within those programs of understanding, well, it's like chasing your tail. You're going to chase your tail just like Lasha does when she's playing, except probably with not as good of a result. Lasha always catches her tail. Okay, so yeah, chakra breathing, you don't need to do every day. You don't need to do it outside of the Shaktipat. Sometimes I will have a person do it as part of their personal practice, but that will depend upon the individual characteristics of their Kundalini and what it's directing them to do. Sometimes the Kundalini will call on that tool to be used, but it's not to be used that way for everyone. Okay? And that's why only for the Shaktipat are we doing extended levels of chakra breathing. Now, you can do the holotropic breath work. Stanislav Graf and his lovely wife, I forget her name. You can do holotropic breathing, spinal breathing. I teach a form of a spinal breathing called cetacean breathing because we all have a fontanelle, which means we all have the same kind of a mechanism that whales and dolphins have for breathing air. They breathe air the way we would breathe energy. That's a different type of a deal. And once again, I wouldn't suggest you do that all the time either because once again, you become fixated and you become trapped in a trap of your own making because it's all based about phenomena and it's all based about the ego wanting to experience phenomena. So no chakra breathing all the time and no spinal breathing all the time, no cetacean breathing all the time. Allow the Kundalini to give to you what it wants to give to you within the practice of the safeties first. And then if you feel a very strong compulsion to expand, well, then shoot me off an email. I'm at KFIREFORALL at yahoo.com while Yahoo still exists. until they partition that off and sell it to somebody. But yeah, I do have an email address there at Yahoo. You can also private message me if you're on Facebook at Chrism Kundalini or Chris Mitchell on Facebook, and you can private email me there as well. And I would like to give off some of the other areas where we can find information that we're talking about here. One of them is on YouTube. There are 333 active videos on YouTube, and you can reach them by going to chrism.kundalini on the YouTube network, and you'll see all those videos come up, and just start plugging into them. Another area would be Google Plus. There's a Kundalini Awakening exclamation point on Google Plus in the community section. In Facebook, we have in the community section or the group section of Facebook, we have Kundalini Awakening exclamation point Kundalini Awakening Systems 2, Kundalini Awakening Systems 3, Kundalini People. We have a public and a private Kundalini Healing group. We have an intentional community group about putting together a community of Kundalini people where Kundalini people can come and be safe and have this without being threatened with being hauled off to a psych ward or a hospital or to jail because sleeping people don't understand what it is to have Kundalini, and that's the Kundalini Radiance community. So we have plenty of opportunities in the Facebook network. We also have Kundalini Virgins, we have Kundalini Healing, and we have Kundalini Awakening Systems 1 on the Yahoo group network, and you're more than welcome to join any or all of these groups as you wish. These are the areas where one can really begin to receive and understand that which is beginning to awaken within them, or that which they want to have awakened within them. Over.
Thank you, Chris. And next question. How are angels or gods or goddesses from another dimension perceived? Is it through the third eye, through intuition, or other kind of perception?
All of the above. I mean, you can see an angel. I mean, they're not hard to see. They're not as common as you think. You know, this whole angel thing, Archangel Michael. Oh, the poor guy. You know, Archangel Michael is called upon to give somebody a parking spot in the grocery store that they're shopping in. Oh, I have my Archangel Michael. He's found me a spot. I mean, angels are not lining up to serve as little parking lot slaves for unawakened humanity. This is a very, very, very important concept that people need to get over. Angels exist. They have their own evolution, and they're not necessarily here to serve humans. As much as the fantasy-laden, imaginative creations of humans would like to suggest that they're here to do just that very same thing, it is not true. Yes, you can view an entity or an angel, god, goddess, if they choose to allow you to view them through the third eye or through an altered consciousness or in the dream life or just with your regular waking visual eyes, you can have that experience of viewing them, but your mind space has to be in the right position. So, for instance, you know, let's just say, oh gosh, you know, I'm unawakened Chrism, no Kundalini. I just like, oh gosh, I just want to see my angels. And I just, oh gosh, I just like, what do you want for Christmas, Chrism? I just want to see my angels. And that's Tika. Tika's on the door wanting to see her angels as well. She can't come in yet because she's still having a house training problem. So we'll send the house training angel to Tika. But because angels are there just to serve Tika, right? Anyway, yeah. If I what do you want for your birthday, Chris? I just want to see an angel. Well, then an entity will disguise itself as an angel and say, here I am, Chrism. I am your angel. You pick door number 1. And so, you want to be very, very careful and very, very discerning about what it is you're viewing and why you want to view it. I mean, why does a person want to view an angel? What's the purpose of that? It's like, okay, once you've seen one angel, you've seen them all. I mean, what is it? What's the purpose of seeing an angel? And what's the purpose of going, well, okay, I can either see it with my third eye, or I can see it with my mind's eye, or I can see it with my regular eye. You'll see the angel the way it wants you to see it, as long as it is a real deal. But even with an entity, you will see it the way it wants to appear, as the angel that it knows that you're expecting to see. So if you're seeing wings, and if you're seeing, a harp, and maybe it's floating down on a cloud, well, that's the first thing I'm going to look at is, oh, that's a nice little entity trying to disguise itself as an angel. I wouldn't believe it. And I will suggest that you may want to, reevaluate why you want to see them in the first place. Over, my dear.
Thank you, Prism. What meditation would you recommend for Kundalini activation? In a Kundalini activation context, What meditation would you recommend for Kundalini activation context?
The safety protocols. First of all, you need to understand the safeties and what they are and why they are. So, once you have the safeties down, I'll recommend a seated on the floor or a seated in a chair towards the edge of a chair. If your place is warm enough where you can go barefoot, then go barefoot. If you're not in a place that can go barefoot, then keep your feet warm and go ahead and squid yourself to the edge of the chair. And I would suggest mantra meditation at first. And then once mantra meditation occurs, then I would suggest breath meditation, which is basically following the breath. And then from there, I would suggest a stillness meditation. So if you don't have a lot of the monkey mind running through, monkey mind meaning all of the different thoughts that we have, oh, did I get my car fixed? Oh, did I remember to buy bread? Oh, did I pay that traffic ticket? Oh, gosh, Star Wars is out there. Should I get a ticket? I mean, all of those different things, that's called the monkey mind. If you have a lot of monkey mind business going in there, well, you're going to take longer to get to the point of stillness than you otherwise would. And this is where a mantra meditation really helps to dispel the effects of the monkey mind. So if you're saying, I am at one with the all that I am at one with the all that I am, well, if you keep saying that over and over and over, it's going to, you won't be able to really think about, oh, did I put gas in the car because my gas gauge isn't working? Or, oh, did I let the kitty cat out because they need to go to the toilet? That type of thing gets taken away because your mouth and your voice and your lips and your intention are focused on saying the mantra. So you say the mantra, and you quell that monkey mind, and then you move it straight into the breath, where you're following the breath. You're just inhaling and exhaling, and you're just following the breath, and you're letting the breath take you into that meditation sequence. And of course, you have your hands in the Gyan Mudra, and if you're sitting in the chair, you're sitting towards the edge of the chair so that you're not slouching in the chair. But you're not hyper straight with the spine either. Remember, the spine needs to have a little bit of a curve to it. Your feet are flat on the floor. They're not crossed. Your chin is slightly down towards the chest, but not all the way down. And your eyes are up. Your tongue is up. Okay? Once again, as you can see, that some of the safeties are involved with this. And so there you have it. And as you follow through the breath meditation, and then the stillness meditation will open its window to you, and you can partake of that stillness meditation without the interferences that the other two filter out. Over.
Thank you. Now, from the group, what is the meaning of inner light? I think I've been experiencing this in my way, but I wonder what it means.
Well, there's a couple of meanings for inner light, and I'm going to take you to the Donner Party in the Sierras of the 1850s. Now, the Donner Party was a Conestoga wagon train that was traveling across the United States to California to start a new life in California. Well, they left a little late, and when they arrived at the Sierra Madre, winter was starting to settle in, and somebody made a really, really bad decision. And they decided to try for the Sierras anyway. And they got to the 10,000-foot level in the Sierras, and a huge snowstorm trapped them at the 10,000-foot level, and they were unable to proceed any further, and they slowly began to starve to death, and they began to cannibalize each other. And so they started eating their families, and it became a very terrible thing. And one of the survivors, that as the winter wore down, some survived, and they said, well, they asked the guy. The question says, well, how did it feel to eat your wife? And he said, this is written down. He says, they were the best liver and lights that I'd ever had. Liver and lights. That would be the inner light, and I think that is associated with the lungs. Okay, so that's one meaning of inner light. Another meaning. Everything I said is true. Another meaning. Sorry. Another meaning is the inner light. The inner light that can happen. I mean, you can have light come to you from the Kundalini. I mean, it literally. Even as a child, you have to remember, I had Kundalini phenomena as a child because I'd had it in another life, and it follows you. And as a child, I would have these tremendous light displays, behind my eyelids. And with Kundalini, that same thing will happen. You don't have to be a child with Kundalini. I mean, it helps, but have the mindset of a child rather than the actual physical being of a child. But the light will come, and this golden white light can erupt inside your head, inside the energetic anatomy of the individual, and this is called the inner light as well. And many formulations of the inner lights can occur. I don't know where the old-time 1850s idea of light being in the lungs, and that was just a guesstimate. Nobody knew what the guy meant from. They knew what they meant from liver, but they didn't know what he meant from light. Well, maybe they did back then. It's probably a common thing back then. But these days, we don't really know how they associated light to the insides of an individual. Within a Kundalini context, the inner light is a very, very, very profound experience, and it just happens all the time. I mean, I can induce it anytime I want. I can see the inner light floating around me in fairly profuse amounts. So the inner light is a real deal, and a good deal too. So thank you for that question, Amelia. Next one. Are you there? No.
Yes, I am here.
You're still laughing. You're still laughing, aren't you?
I was. I'm sorry. Then I started coughing, so I had to mute. So no, let's not go back there. Okay, I'm going to move straight on to the next question, which is, I have researched a lot, and without the Guru Kripa, we can't awaken our Kundalini. Is this true?
Say again, that last part.
I have researched a lot, and without the Guru Kripa, Kripa, we can't awaken our Kundalini. Is this true?
Well, if that's the name of a guru, that's absolutely false.
Well, I actually checked it because I wasn't familiar with the term, and it means the grace of the Guru.
Oh, well, that's false too. No offense to any guru's grace out there. But Kundalini doesn't require a corporeal guru to awaken to awaken itself in an individual. I didn't have a guru, and it awakened in me. I don't think you had a guru. It awakened in you, and but it does work. I mean, Rosemary had a teacher, and the teacher gave her a Shaktipat, and it awakened in her, and so it'll go either way, but it's not one way or the other. It is not such an absolutist equation. Over.
Okay, so so in a way it's false, isn't it? Because he says without the guru we can't. Well, that's not true. Sure, it's not. Yeah.
Also, then again, are you considering the Kundalini to be the guru?
Well, he doesn't say the physical guru, of course. So perhaps, but I don't think so. I think he's referring, yeah. But then the grace of the guru, in my own case, I did not have a guru. I did not have a teacher when Kundalini awakened. Yet after that, when I was guided by my inner guru, the Kundalini, to have a physical teacher, the grace of the guru presence, the grace of the guru has made all the difference to my process.
Well, there's a time and a place for the guru to be given, and I think that people tend to get lost in the expectations of their culture. And I get a lot of a read off of this individual's question is that they're getting lost into the culture and the expectations based in that culture, and cultural expectations are a mistake within the Kundalini. And so these people, generation after generation after generation, are born within this ideology and this assumption that Kundalini can only be given within a certain level of expectation. And they go straight into their cultural expectations and expect that to be worldwide, and it's just not the case.
Okay. Thank you, Chrism. The next question is, what is the Eye of Horus?
The Eye of Horus. Very, very interesting Eye of Horus deal. If you do a vivisection of the brain from the forehead all the way back, you'll come to the pineal gland. And the pineal gland itself is shaped as an Egyptian eye. And the Eye of Horus is a very, very specialized vision of an eye, and this is the floating eye that will come out in front of you about 6 to 7 feet or closer, and it'll be in the main focus of your vision, and it'll stay there. You'll have no control whether it comes or goes. It will come and go of its own accord, and this eye has a characteristic of itself imprinted upon the actual flesh of the brain, of the midbrain, and what happens is the pineal gland becomes the pupil, and then the rest of the eye is characterized around that. And typically when people start seeing the Eye of Horus floating out in front of them, they have a Kundalini equation going on. Now, the Egyptians call it the Eye of Horus. Horus, of course, was one of the Egyptian gods, a falcon god. And anybody can go ahead and look up what Horus represents to the ancient Egyptians, easy enough. But in this case, it's also reminiscent of the spirit taking flight, i.e., the wings on the caduceus that the doctors and medical people wear. Those wings are the spirit taking flight. The Eye of Horus is another indication of the spirit taking flight, but also of the inner eye becoming aware, the all-seeing eye. And this is what the Masons tried to replicate on the United States $1 bill, with that all-seeing eye floating over the pyramid. And they used a lot of Egyptian stuff in their little system. And that floating eye that a Kundalini person sees would have been, I think, would have caused the Masonic people of that time to put that on the dollar bill, and all the other, little hidden symbols like the owl, Moloch on the $1 bill, and all the different little things that they like to code into our money. That also has relevance to the all-seeing eye. The all-seeing eye, literally, though, is the eye of the Kundalini awakened or activated within the individual. And when that person starts to see the eye of Horus floating in front of them, they can be assured that they are indeed inside of this process, and they want to start really, really surrendering to the Kundalini within them. Over.
Thank you, Prism. Next question. Could you please let me know how to manage Kundalini at the crown chakra if it hits regularly?
No, we do not manage the Kundalini. We do not control the Kundalini. We do not use our ego to expect divine obedience. Not going to happen. Okay. So the person is really kind of off the mark right off the bat when they're saying manage the Kundalini. Now, what they can do is they can manage themselves within the Kundalini. And maybe perhaps that's more of what they were pertaining to. But we do not manage Kundalini. Now, the Taoists, the Taoists are really great ones for trying to manage Kundalini. They've got the macrocosmic orbit. They've got the microcosmic orbit. They've got the red male deer exercises. They've got all these different things so that they can take the authority of the divine away from themselves and use those great gifts for the expression of the ego, as a part of a martial arts system or part of a system that is used as a weapon against other people. And this is just really it curtails the level of awakening that a person can have when they try to control the Kundalini this way. Instead of just giving into the divine and allowing the divine to do what the divine wants to do with the individual, these persons are trying to use the ego as a way of controlling the divine. Well, the divine, because it awakened in them at all, there's a certain level of grace and a certain level of power there. And it may donate a part of the chi aspects of itself to the Taoist practitioner, but for the most part, they will not be able to go beyond the little games that they're trying to play with controlling the Kundalini. And this will take lifetimes of work where they play the game, they get, kind of cut off from the higher resources so that they can play the game to the point where they can engage the higher resources without having to fall back on Taoist techniques of control. And yet, even in the safeties, the Kundalini itself gave us some particular Taoist techniques that would allow for the person to come into harmony with the Kundalini, and this would be the tongue up position, the eyes up position, even the finger locks, because the Kundalini will press the forefinger tip and the thumb tip together quite hard sometimes. They would adopt that type of a thing to try to mitigate the effect of the Kundalini. Now, when you're talking about mitigating the effect, are you talking about coming into harmony with it, or are you talking about taking control away from it? And I'm going to suggest that coming into harmony with it is a good way of allowing yourself to partake of the Kundalini without necessarily controlling it. Just so you know, Lasha agrees. Lasha, our cat, is agreeing. Yep, she's here with her tail up. So, over now.
Thanks, Chrism.
Yep.
Could you say something, please, about refinement? What is refinement? You use it a lot when you're speaking. And could you give a synopsis or an explanation of what you mean when you say refinement?
What I mean by refinement, I mean by observing certain protocols and activities and thoughts that replace, shall we say, an individual that is thinking in a sleepwalker way with an individual that is speaking in an awakened context. And so when you refine the body, you are taking out elements that get in the way of divine infusion and replacing it with elements that are harmonious and invite a divine infusion or a divine transformation. And so refinement really is exactly, if you look up the meaning of the word, refinement means to break down to the purest particles of expression. And I'm guessing here that that's what it means. I don't have the Merriam dictionary in front of me right now. But to refine something is to bring it into a level of purity, minus toxicities, minus impurities, minus things that would get in the way of the in our case of the Kundalini coming forward in as strong a way as possible. And so the safety protocols themselves are refinement protocols. They refine the person by inviting the person to think a certain way, to act a certain way, and to express themselves in a certain way that allow for a more prominent position of Kundalini expression to be experienced through those activities. Over.
I just checked, as you said that, I Googled in front of me here, and refinement at the process of removing impurities or unwanted elements from a substance, polishing, honing, fine-tuning, and there's lots more. So, yeah.
Yeah. So that's basically what we're doing with refinement.
Yeah. Okay, next question. Thank you, Chrism. How to manage deep meditations without any disturbance from outside, and how to come from it without damaging the heart.
Yeah. First of all, meditation will never, ever, ever damage your heart. Unless your heart has some sort of a precondition, a medical condition that is contrary to meditation, which, maybe you have a narcolepsy, or maybe you have some sort of a thing that prohibits you from doing meditation in a way that is helpful for you. Still, even so, your heart's not going to be damaged. And I understand that when you come out of meditation, a person can have their heart skip a beat or something of that nature. And once again, you got to understand that the human body understands that it has Kundalini. The human body understands. All the cells of the human body understand through their genetic intelligence that meditation and relaxation is part and parcel of the human condition. And so to suggest that it's going to hurt your heart sounds to me like disinformation given from some teacher or some yogi or somebody that's trying to use fear as a way to control people and whether or not they meditate. Meditation does not hurt your heart. But there was another part of that question. What was that?
How to manage deep meditations without any disturbance from outside.
Don't try to manage the deep meditation. Let the deep meditation be as it needs to be. And don't worry about your heart as you come out of a deep meditation. Let your heart be as it needs to be. It's not going to be damaged. Unless, of course, as I said before, there is a pre-existing medical conditions with the heart. And I must say that I am not in any way, shape, or form a medical practitioner or a person connected with the medical industry, and so therefore I am loath to align myself with an industry such as the medical industry that basically purports to know everything because they can measure it or limit.
So, Cousin, sorry, beg your pardon.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So, if during meditation or as you're coming out, I'm not too sure when a person would become aware of their heart rate, let's say, in a meditation, but let's say your heart rate slows down almost to the point of stopping. That's not something to be concerned about typically within a meditation
well, if you're
sequence,
doing, if the Kundalini is doing that through you, you have nothing to worry about. If you're trying to stop your heart through meditation and then you're giving yourself heart problems coming back out of the meditation, that's your own fault. Stop going so deep and stop trying to stop the heart.
Yes.
Very
it happens. It makes sense.
Don't go that deep. Do not go that deep into meditation. It is not necessary.
Next question. I have sciatica. I'm wondering if it's due to chakra issues.
Sciatica. This person, at least for this person, I would say it's due to weight issues. Weight. How much they weigh. Sciatica isn't necessarily a chakra-oriented scenario. Sciatica is often a scenario where people have overindulged in some areas and underindulged in other areas, and the body responds through levels of pain because it's out of balance, and as that out of balance expresses itself through the body, one of the mechanisms of expression will be sciatica pain. So find the harmony. Do the work. Do the exercise. Get off of the couch, out of the chair, and find the balance in your life and find the balance in your physical life. Got to remember, it took a long time for that sciatica to work its way into an expressive system. So you need to see where it is you're not doing the work. And you know what, do you just want to ease the pain by popping a pill? Well, that's not going to get rid of the sciatica. That's just going to get rid of some of the pain. And so I'm going to suggest that you go to the root of the issue and you give yourself a new way of living your life. A new protocol of health. I just had to let Losh out. A new protocol of health. A new way of looking at pain and a new way of looking at the causation of pain that doesn't allow you to just pop that pill and say, okay, pain be gone, and start taking care of the issue from the very, very, very root of the issue. Over.
Thank you, Cousin. We have less than 2 minutes to go before the show finishes.
Last words, Amelia.
I have none, Cousin. Thank you very much.
Last words of 2015.
Oh, thank you, everybody, for joining us throughout this whole year. It's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed it, and I look forward to 2016 and being with all of you again next week, the first Wednesday of 2016. Thank you.
And I would like to echo the gratitude for everybody joining us. I would like to thank guest 1470, Mary Jean, and Vincent 91. I'd like to thank all of our callers, Josephine, Rosemary, Brooke, Eileen. I would like to thank Santara and her husband, John, in the Kingdom, for providing this show and for all the years that they have provided for this show to exist. Thank you, John and Amelia. And I'd like to welcome everybody to 2016, day after tomorrow. We'll be there. Hope to see you. Good night, everyone.